Hi there, I'm Rebecca Dieterman.
I'm Samira Sadat.
I'm Evan Jewell.
I'm Joel Wilson.
And this is the GreenHorns strategy session.
Yeah, so after kickoff, the GreenHorns sifted through the game manual, taking note of how the points can be scored, where they can be scored from, and what the game pieces were, and what actions were prohibited. It was important for us to go through the game manual first so that we could see what actions contributed to ranking points, which are important for teams to be able to get the highest rank possible, maybe even become alliance captain, as well as get as many points possible during the game, which consequently result in 2 ranking points.
All right, so we wanted to look at what to consider in the beginning of the match before the match even started. So the preconditions. So what we really wanted to look at was in that first 15 seconds, whether or not to place a hatch panel or a cargo inside of your cargo ship. And what we decided on was that it really depends on your team's ability and confidence to place those things. So if you are confident that you are able to place a hatch panel in that first 15 seconds, that's what we'd really recommend, because then you can get the cargo and the hatch panel together in one. But if you're not confident that you can place that hatch panel in the first 15 seconds, what we would recommend is either placing that null panel on there, or just leaving it blank if you're confident you can get it right after that 15-second time.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the Sandstorm portion of the game. Now, this part of the game reveal was probably the most interesting part of the reveal. So we no longer have what's called the autonomous period of the match. We now have the Sandstorm, in which there are a few options for the drivers. So they can either still have the autonomous mode and go through pre-programmed instructions, or they have the option of driving the robot but only with no view of the field, but driving with a camera. Or you could drive blind, which we don't recommend doing. So when we look through which option would be best for teams to go with, we decided that maybe getting if you have a working auto for sure that is reliable, that's gonna put you in a better position than driving. So do it if you don't have a camera or reliable vision. However, if you don't have the autonomous up and running, you can give it a go if you have a camera and a good driver. If you don't have either of those things, we don't drive blind. So, because you can't cross the halfway point and you risk fouls for hitting other robots. So we probably don't recommend that strategy.
And you could also hit your own alliance's robot and knock off their autonomous or something like that too.
Having a good drive coach to communicate those strategies beforehand to make sure that you're not overstepping boundaries and that you're properly planning which team is choosing to either preload a null hatch or choosing to preload a cargo into the cargo ship will be something that a drive coach will focus on, and that will help increase coordination and help win the game. So highly encourage a drive coach to be chosen as soon as possible, so that person can start figuring out ways to communicate ideas with other alliance captains and really master the game before the competition starts. Now, what we'll segue into is the attaching of hatches to the low panels. And each year, I think we've seen a task in a game where if you specialize in it, you'll be highly valuable to your alliance, and some of those are really easy. 2017, the gears, which is the closest parallel that I can draw between a previous game, is the gears. Alliance stations would send a gear down and it would fall into some kind of catching system that you could drive up, spear it, and take it and put it somewhere else. This is exactly similar, where it'll be preloaded or taken off of the field in a similar fashion, taken and put on the cargo ship. So we really came to the conclusion that we encourage rookie teams or inexperienced or low resource teams that it's recommended for them to tackle this goal and fill all of the lower levels, including the cargo ship, because there's 5 ports to score the cargo in, and that will greatly increase your value in the eyes of, upper competitive robots, and increase your chance of being a second or third pick, or third robot on the Alliance. Another thing I want to talk about is the low cargo. So as much as I encourage the low panels, because if you don't have those at the end with the final Sandstorm, the platform will elevate, all cargo will fall onto the field if you don't have a hatch to block that opening. So low cargo, in our opinion, isn't as much of a draw for low resource teams this year. I really think that it's the hatch, and that lower resource teams should focus on that as opposed to the cargo, and let the quick, higher resource teams handle the cargo and help them out with the hatches.
Along with not just having low panels, there are high panels, which are more accessible to the higher resource teams, since they have more experience and have more resources available. More experienced teams and higher resource teams can more easily get the higher cargo into the higher panels and goals, which then gives them more of an incentive to not go for the lower hatches or cargo.
Yeah, and going off of that, it's important for an alliance to probably have one robot that can handle the high cargo, because that would be necessary for completing the rocket, which Becca will go over now.
All right, so what our Greenhorns decided was that completing the rocket first was the most important thing, and not splitting it off into 2 different rockets, because completing that first rocket is the most important thing, because it would gain you a rank point. So after completing that first rocket, you would want to focus on the cargo ship and the second rocket next. Greenhorns would recommend that you wouldn't try to focus all 3 robots onto that first rocket at one time, because it can overcrowd that area. But really completing that first rocket is the most important thing. And after that, the points do not matter, as in the rocket doesn't matter more than the than the cargo ship does.
So the next thing we'll talk about is climbing the HAB. So this is something that's really important for alliances to think about, because if you earn at least 15 points, that earns the alliance another ranking point. And you can get these 15 points with 1 robot on the first level and 1 on the third level, or 2 robots on the second level and 1 on the first level. So it's important for teams to think about and put some thought into how their robot will be able to get onto the various levels. And in our opinion, if you can be a team that can successfully get onto the second or even third levels, that'll make you a valuable asset for alliance selection. And then in terms of timing, like during the game, there's no set time in which you're not allowed to climb, but so kind of make sure you set a time for yourself so that you know that your robot can safely get onto the platform, and that all of your weight is supported and that all of your bumpers are on that platform, so that it counts for your team. Now, if you know, based on your capabilities and those of your alliance members, that you're probably not going to get the climbing ranking point, at that point, focus on getting the most number of points efficiently, whether that's climbing to some degree or spending more time on the rocket and cargo ship if you have to.
Defense is going to be a big thing in this game this year, because to score points for the cargo, the rocket ship and cargo ship need the hatch panel in order to keep the cargo in place. And if your opposing alliance cannot get those hatch panels onto the rocket or the cargo ship, they are not able to keep the cargo within the rocket or cargo ship. So being able to use that in advantage for your team would be great, and just preventing them from getting those points and being able to score 3 more with the cargo is going to be a major thing within this game.
So with that, keep in mind that while we are pushing the low panels or the low hatch panels, you'll have a big target on your head, as Evan said, with you trying to shuttle these things, because the only way that the cargo is scored at the end is if you have the hatch panel, right? And since we're encouraging it and you are the one that is doing these low hatch panels, you'll have a big target on your head for denial of points throughout the game. So keep that in mind when designing for one specific thing, being the hatch panels, and practice driving a lot and outmaneuver them. It's just that easy. So possible trade-offs when we're looking at building the robot, especially for our organization and our project, the robot in 3 days, is time constraints that really make it difficult to want to do, for example, picking up hatches off of the ground, similar to a gear intake from 2017 that low resource teams or rookie teams this year could look up to see what I'm talking about. A gear intake from 2017 would pick up a flat gear, orient it, and then be able to score it. And I see hatches or high resource teams targeting that exact design to get flat hatches off of the floor and to reorient them and score them, so now it's not just an obstacle and potentially wasted points against your team. So another trade-off we could look at is whether or not your team is shooting for the second and third platform when you're looking at the habitat or hab zone. The second level being 6 inches higher than level 1. It might not seem like a lot because it's certainly no 17 inches off of level 1, but look up videos of the rock wall or channel your experience from, say, the 2016 year with the rock wall being 4 inches tall. Even that thing was a monster to get over with pneumatic tires and Dukes of Hazzard in it. So keep in mind 6 inches is a lot taller than you might think. We're actually building a wooden field right now that will be done, videoed, and prototyped against. So keep that in mind. Really channel into our content as we put it out for ideas of how difficult it is for some of these field elements. Another trade-off we could be looking at here is if you're only focusing on doing the hatch or the cargo, if you are targeted while you're doing hatch placement, being a big target and being knocked out of the game by a good defense robot could severely injure your alliance. So coordinate counter defense or coordinate another way to maneuver and strategize around a defense robot when thinking about that. And another trade-off is not being able to reach the high points because your rocket needs to have hatch panels on every side and every level to get the rank point at the end, and needs to be populated with cargo. Not being able to do that will prevent you from getting the rank point, but you can make that up as a team by focusing on the second or third panel if you have enough resources. So those are our trade-offs, and that is our strategy talk for at least the day one. We'll be pushing out more content. Like I mentioned, a lot of our prototyping will be out on our YouTube channel that you were able to find this video on. So keep in touch and keep tuning in for our designs on intakes, how we're handling hatches. I should tell you, we are handling hatches, the cargo, and as well as getting on to the second level of the hab. So that's what we have in mind, and that's what we're going to be pushing out content as. So keep in touch and keep in tune with what we're doing.
See ya.